courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become.
I can't even make this up. He starts walking, I draw back, and he's down. He's right there. What's up, guys? Welcome to the podcast. Today's episode is made possible by the awesome folks over at Maven Optics, an amazing Wyoming-based optics company that I absolutely love. Whether you're in the market for a rifle scope or binoculars, Maven is the company I would recommend hands down. I've been running the B series binoculars for a number of years now. And in my opinion, these are hands down the best bang for your buck and are just an awesome piece of gear. This year, I got myself a new pair of B5s in the 15 by 56s. And let me just say, I absolutely love these binoculars and I plan on using the B5s a lot this year. I've seen a lot of open country hunters who run only 15s, and so I thought, what the heck, I'm going to give it a try, see if I can run only 15s. I also picked up a new RS3 rifle scope that I'm putting on top of my 300 HCA for pretty much all of my rifle hunts. So pretty stoked about some new optics this year. Maven makes really high quality stuff, and for the price point, you just absolutely can't touch it. The one thing you'll hear great hunters talk about throughout this podcast is invest in good glass. If you want to upgrade your hunting skills, head over to mavenbuilt.com and upgrade your glass. Use that TRO code for a special gift when you purchase. All right, Mr. Lampers.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast, man.
Thanks. It has
Catching
been a while.
up. Look, I took your advice. I added mule deer to the studio.
Oh,
you were so offended.
It's glorious in here now. I'm real comfortable in this studio now.
You don't get that
mule
nervous
deer racks. I feel like we got more to talk about now that there's some mule deer ducks in this room.
It's been a while since we caught up. Yeah, well, we started BSing before the podcast, so we're going to try to. I'm going to cover some of the stuff we talked about.
Yeah,
but you had a pretty epic season, as usual. I have a love-hate relationship with Ryan Lampers because you're like some kind of superpower where you go on these hunts and I'm like, God damn him. I can't even make fun of you for being old because you still out-hike me, you still out-hunt me, still all these things. Like, I wish you'd just get older. So
I don't know about that. I am getting older. I'm definitely getting grayer. No, it was a great season. Good season. A lot of time put into it. So, I think that's what I have that maybe some folks don't, is just
how many days do you put in?
Oh gosh, we've talked about this before too. Like how many days a year? I don't know, because there's we build these 10-day trips.
Yeah.
I just love the 10-day option. If you can carve out 10 days, I feel like you should be able to get it done.
Right.
For the most part, you just have all this ample time to learn and figure things out and dial in where the animals are, or, if you have one picked out, you just don't have to be so go. You can sit back, be patient, let things happen.
That's the thing you're really good at, is like waiting for the right opportunity. And so I want to come back to the how many days thing, but I will say that this year, post September, obviously September doesn't count in this, but like during October, November, I was trying to weekend hunt and just like do the Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. I haven't done that in years. But there was a lot of work coming down the plate. There's a lot of other things that Kelsey and I were working on. So I was like, okay, I'm going to hunt weekends. That's a terrible plan. That's a terrible idea.
These days, it really is.
And it goes to your point of like, if you only have a couple days, you're virtually trying to get lucky. It feels like, because it's like, you don't really cover an area well enough to like, okay, say, this is good or not good.
Yeah.
I never felt like I was covering a bunch of ground, but at the same time I would get done with something and be like, I don't know that I could say whether there was something here or not. I just felt like, okay, I'm just trying to get lucky essentially and stumble across something. Whereas when you go to the 10-day version of that, it's like when I go on a 10-day trip, it's like, it's a process of elimination. And it's like, okay, I can leave there generally knowing there was something there or not there. Generally speaking, in 10 days, I can find it and I can cover enough ground to find it.
You're real confident after 10 days. Like
right.
I was in the area, had my chances, you know, I should have had it. I should have made it happen or whatever. in 2 days, yeah, like you said, you could just miss it. Like you could just the buck could have just slipped by that day. You're looking in the wrong direction, or the conditions aren't right, which I find happen to me all the time. Often you'll get up there and you'll be parked in your tent for 30 hours or whatever when you're up at the tops. But yeah, I'm just in love with the longer trips. Yeah, longer trips, 8, 10 days, 12 days. It's just, you get to relax, you get to be patient. The older I get, the more patient I get. Completely night and day from what I used to be in my 20s. And with patience, it happens enough times where those last day bucks or last day bulls or last day success happens way more often than not. And it's still hard to explain why, because it feels like
statistically it shouldn't work that way.
Like day 9, sometimes you'll just get totally blanked and you're not real confident on day 10. But for whatever reason, day 10 seems to really work out.
That's your day?
It's the day. And it's usually second half of day 10 too. Go figure. But
do you feel like you buckle down harder at the end of a 10-day? Or
for sure.
Which is interesting, because I would say a lot of people start, myself included, I think the more that you find success, the more confident you become in this. But I find myself towards the end of it, like I'll use the caribou hunt, for example. Like I feel like Craig and I both had like written the story in our head that it was okay that we weren't successful. You're like, that's fine. Like, it was like you wrote this story. I don't feel like we gave up by any stretch, because we actually pushed harder on the last 3 days of season. But I think in our head, we were both kind of like, it was a good trip. Like doing the whole like not talking yourself out of it, but like just your emotional support, thing of your own self.
Sure.
And it's like, I do feel like there's a lot of people, and I've hunted with people this way, that start to hunt less, or like once they write that story in their head, like, it was a good year, but we didn't quite get it. They tend to start easing off the gas pedal instead of on. And I feel like maybe you're the guy that's like 2 days left.
It's
like,
total opposite for me. My hunting partner, Brian, he's mentioned that. And I think he's picked up on that. Like it almost gets a little frantic at the end. Like there's gotta be something I can do to make this happen. Like day 8 comes around, you're like, I'm not doing something. Like I'm doing something wrong. Maybe it's just I got to be on that top. I got to be on that perch. I got to look in that drainage that I haven't seen yet. Maybe that's where he is. That magical buck that you've been looking for. Now, not every trip's the same. Some trips, it's. I'm just going to stick it out. I'm going to, do what I've been doing. I'm going to focus on this spot. I know he's going to show up if I'm diligent. But then there's times where it's like, we're just not seeing them. Like something hasn't happened, and I'm in a push with every ounce of my being to make it happen. And Brian has witnessed that. Like he's seen on some bear hunts where things didn't happen, and then day 8, day 9, day 10, you are given 100% of what you have in the tank. And
does that mean covering ground?
Covering ground, looking at every option, doing basically it's that old thing. Do whatever it takes to make it happen. Right. So it can get a little frantic at the end of a big trip. But I love it. I love that. I like the push. And I think having it in the tank mentally and physically, that's where it's at. Like if you don't have that. What's
interesting, we were talking before we started, we were talking about this season and mule deer in Montana. And because I was on this like weekend trend, I felt like I had that pressure. I had 2 days to get it done. And I was going hard, and I was like going to put the miles down. Right. And the more people I saw, the harder I went, the farther I went. And I was telling you that like after the fact, maybe this is a seasonal thing, particularly like Montana in this season, but I was talking to my buddy Tony, and he was telling me like, he was kind of not seeing what he wanted, but then they happened to pick up a big buck that was bedded by himself. And he's like, then once we noticed that, we started picking up big bucks, not rutting. And I was like, damn it. I was going so hard that I was probably walking by some deer, and it's like when you have 2 days and you're like, go, 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 it can feel like I'm going to push so hard. I'm going to work so hard. But the irony there was that like due to Montana's season or whatever happened this year, I don't know that the deer were rutting the way they were supposed to. And so here I am, and deer were probably bedded, and I'm just like covering ground and not, I'm walking by them, And so like you can be a little bit over ambitious, or at least I was. Again, every hunt's different. Every scenario is different. Like,
Yeah, 100%. And this was a wanky year for the rut. You and I both noticed that. And we had the luxury of spending a lot of days. And we noticed that most years in November, say second, third week in November, November 10th on, you're just expecting to see bucks cruising during the day. Right. The weather's decent. It's not 70 degrees. It's cool conditions, breezy, smack dab in the middle of the rut. Generally, you just expect to grab a perch, and you're seeing, whether it's forkies or good mature bucks leaving the does after they've bedded up, they're just cruising, running ridges, getting perches, looking around. That was not the case this year.
Yeah.
It felt like it just, I don't know if it was or wasn't, but it felt like a really light, weak rut compared to most years.
Yeah.
Because we noticed that. Like there was this big gap from morning action till evening action, where we were seeing does, we were seeing bucks, but they were bedded up, and they were bedded up for long periods of time.
Yeah.
Where most years, you can pretty much count on them getting up during the rut and not doing that. So, yeah, we found that we were having to really pick apart the cuts and the coulees and the shaded areas, almost like a earlier season.
Right. But we also saw, like, we would see deer. Matthew and I were up on a perch, and we were watching 3 or 4 different groups that were rutting, but they were like, nothing. And initially it was like, oh man, they're just not a good buck in this area. I'm watching, let's say, 4 groups of does. From where I'm at, I can see 4 rutting groups, right? And there's these small 3 points, 4 points, just younger bucks. And some weren't even that young. And Tony was telling me he was watching that, but then they'd pick up a big buck, just up in the cuts, like not even paying attention. And, it's like, in retrospect, yeah, that makes sense. But at the time, I was just like, man, there's just not any, good bucks in here. There's not the bucks cruising. There's not anything. It was like, I'm seeing danks. I'm not seeing the age class. And I think that's what most people saw.
Yeah. Yeah. We noticed the same thing. Like we definitely had rut action. We were definitely watching bucks do everything. It was a blast. But we kept commenting on, like, man, there should be a good buck in there. Like, there's a lot of does. There's a dozen does there. Why is there a kind of a middle class, middle age, 3-point running that? And what we started to find out was, and this happens often anyway, but the biggest bucks that we were seeing were either off by themselves or they had cut one doe from the group. And they were just in this little area running that doe around, almost secluded to the point where you couldn't hardly find them. And the biggest bucks that we found were not with the groups of does. They were definitely either off by themselves, just not feeling the rut, bedded up, kind of alone, or they had cut one doe and they were just focused on that one doe. Definitely a little bit different this year. I don't know why that is. We were also talking about this crazy phenomenon. It feels like that's happening right now with the velvet bucks that we're seeing.
That wasn't even just Montana. I did see a couple people
all over
post.
the place.
Yeah, all over the place. That's super interesting. And I found, Matthew and I, when we were sitting up on that perch, there was one. We're like, man, it was a long ways away, and we're like, that's really white horn buck. Like, I was like, is he velvet? Yep. I was like, yeah, it must be a stag. I was like, it's not a stag buck. It just looks like a regular buck, but velvet. Yeah. And as he worked his way closer, I was like, yeah, that's a velvet buck. And then we ended up seeing another one that was smaller. And I was like, that's weird. We noticed this. The last year was the first year where we were like, dang, why are we seeing so many velvet bucks all of a sudden in November? They're off by themselves or grouped up, like pairs of 2, almost like bachelor groups of velvet bucks that you'd see in the summer. And they seem perfectly healthy, but we're starting to see more and more. And we saw more this year. And the more people I talk to, they're seeing them this year. My cousin, Joey, he shot one back in Washington. That was a cactus stag. I mean, cactus bucks, whatever you want to call them. These are bucks that just, they have low testosterone. So what's the difference between like a cactus buck and just a velvet buck?
I'm not sure. I think I'd like to ask that question to
because usually a cactus buck, when I think of a stag buck, you think of like these like weird growths, little short bases. I found a deadhead this year that was definitely a cactus buck. It had like a lot of they call them cactus bucks because it's got just a bunch
bases
of
are just gnarly,
littered with little antler things. Right. But generally speaking, they don't grow out very big antlers.
Right.
And then historically, when I thought of cactus bucks, that's what I think of, was just like these little heavy based, but never really grow very
That's
tall.
what I think of. I don't know the true definition of a cactus buck versus what we're seeing now are just like,
they're just
normal
deer.
4 points, but they're velveted out and they're not chasing does.
Yeah.
They're not scraping. They don't have the testosterone required to scrape their velvet off and get frisky, So,
well, and you were saying like Paley's buck was like super.
Oh man. So yeah, the buck she took this year,
which is really nice, cool, by the way.
Yeah, she got a good one. She was so happy with that buck, and we'll tell this story later, but we actually filmed it and all that. It's awesome how she got it done. And this is one of those last minute, like virtually last minute of the last day hunts. I'm glad she got to see that. So we got a great night hike out of it. But her buck was a fully mature buck, kind of white horned. He definitely wasn't scraping and definitely wasn't feeling his oats out there, getting frisky and rutting totally by himself. Didn't have the does. And the tips of his antlers, I was telling you before, I have never felt like a pinprick type antler tip than what he had on all of his tips. Like
Sharp.
He hadn't polished, he hadn't scraped. You could have broke those things off real easy, and he wasn't fighting. So it's funny because, my wife's a doctor, and she works with hormones, and she works with testosterone all the time, right? And she was commenting, she's like, well, I mean, there is this phenomenon in the world right now with low testosterone, it's kind of her big business now. It's a growing business, is this testosterone thing. Folks are finding even in their 20s that they're very low, 30s lower. And some of these 70-year-old guys have higher testosterone than these 20-year-old guys. And so there's all kinds of factors and all kinds of ideas as to why that's occurring. A lot of it's probably environmental issues, but why are we seeing this in deer right now? Like all of a sudden, the bucks that we're chasing have low testosterone. They're not interested in the does. They've got velvet in November. They're not scraping off that, and they're just not.
That's super fascinating.
I don't know if it's an environmental thing. I think I've heard, probably the guru and the guy to get on to talk about this is Jim Heffelfinger. He is probably more knowledgeable than anybody on these matters. I'd love to get his insight as to what he thinks is going on. I heard him talk about kind of what we saw last year. He spoke to people because people were bringing up the fact that last season everyone was seeing a lot more velvet bucks than we've ever seen in the past. And he was saying, with some of these diseases going around, just EHD or CWD, it does affect their
that can have a
testosterone. So I don't know exactly the
correlation
between that.
Is it EHD or ESD? EHD, right?
Epizoic hemorrhagic disease.
Yeah, so EHD. I don't know why I had a stutter there. So I've heard that the EHD doesn't really affect the mule deer like the whitetails, but we really don't know, right? And so it could be it's affecting that.
You think maybe it just affects them?
I don't. I'm speaking out of my pay grade here. But Gutorms and I were talking about this. How is that the reason we're not seeing the age class? Is there something? Because if you say across the state, people did not see the age class. I think that's a loose term because did we see the age class or did the drought year hold off on the antler growth? And so it appears to not be an age class.
Well, let's face it. Most people determine age class by
antler size.
Giant buck, massive racks.
Right. Yeah. And so did you have age class but no antler size? I saw bucks that I would call had age class that were interestingly small.
Yeah.
And so was that an EHD thing or was that a drought year feed thing? Right. And so I'm not, again, above my pay grade.
Sure.
But yeah, these are interesting.
We noticed that 100% because, a buck that we watched last year, we got him on film. He was a great buck, a nice mature buck. And the buck that Paley took last year was pushing this buck all over the mountain. Like her buck was older. I mean, he was at all the classic of an old buck. He actually looked kind of, you could see his rib. I mean, he was sway back, pot belly, just an old regress. This was his second year regressing because I'd seen him the year prior as well. Well, that buck that she got was chasing this other buck around that had much larger antlers than this one. Well, we got back on that buck this year and old Mark Livesey actually took this buck this year.
Oh, it's the one Mark took.
Yeah, and he actually had regressed from last year. He wasn't a real old buck or anything, but his antlers had definitely lost quite a bit.
Again, is it regression or is it bad?
Don't know. I was just saying it was the drought, because one thing I noticed this year is, in a lot of areas where we're accustomed to seeing 1.5 foot tall grass, yellow grass. This year we were seeing dirt, like we were seeing an inch, if that, of grass. Now there were definitely places where there was more feed than others, but as a general rule, we were seeing hardly any grass in a lot of these places that usually deer can bed down and disappear in. This year we were seeing dirt.
Did that change behaviorally where the deer were?
I wouldn't say.
I would say it did for the elk.
Yeah, for sure. We didn't see that as far as like the Eastern Plains as much. They were still focused in the same areas that we've seen them in the past, for sure. So, but it definitely did for elk from what I saw.
Yeah. Before we get off mule deer topic, I actually have a legit, I wanted to ask a question, which is with this heritage season, Jade and I were talking a little bit, it's interesting because I would think, I think I understand the elk side of it more than the deer. I just never really thought about how to hunt deer in December. But what's your take, A, on the heritage season, and B is it doesn't seem like the best opportunity to kill big buck because, we're talking, you can hunt them with a rifle in the rut. Yeah. So it seems post-rut would be harder. Whereas elk, it's like when you rifle hunt elk, it's post-rut, but not post-rut, which is by now these bulls are living on some wind-blown ridge and they're fairly static, right? They're not hunkered down in the timber where you can't find them. Generally speaking, they're out. And so in what ways, if you had a heritage tag or the muzzleloader tags, I'm actually going out this weekend. So I'm like, okay, my theory was I would assume that I'll just say my theory and then you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm like, okay, I'm assuming most of the deer that I see are using ag fields. I don't know if the big bucks are going to be using ag fields, but they should be close. It kind of gets into this post-rut behavior where it's like, okay, most of their feed, and I don't know this, but most of their feed should be some kind of agriculture. What's your theory on this?
Gosh, I don't know if I'm the best to answer that. I don't know about the ag field.
You killed giants in Arizona in January.
Well, yeah, except the seasons are so different because they are in full rut in January in Arizona. They're usually January 15th they're still full rut. They're starting to taper down pretty well in Arizona, but gosh, they're rutting. They're rutting. They're starting in December and rutting almost through January. So definitely different, but I'm really curious to see the success that guys find on this heritage season. I want to see how you do on it. It's definitely got me thinking because I used to muzzleload hunt a lot.
Same.
And we used to run those Hawkins. I used to chase elk in North Idaho with the old Hawken. I would go back from a 50 cal to a 54 cal. I think overall I settled into the 50 cal as my preferred, but man, I don't even want to. There's so many stories of failures with the old Hawken, no doubt about it.
Oh, it's a terrible weapon.
So many tips and tricks I learned from some of my mentors with making sure that thing goes off, obviously.
Feed them here. The one I have is we switched, because we used to do that whitetail hunt in Oregon late and with the Hawkins. And then we ended up switching. I ran the Hawkins, and there was a couple of us that ran the Hawkins. And then we ended up getting into the CVAs and the Knights and the fancier ones. But there was
made it nice.
Oh man, those are world of difference, right?
They go off.
Right, exactly. But the one thing we did this to this. I had a CVA, Pat had a Knight, and we moved to the musket caps because we had a lot better luck. Generally speaking, on the nipple, the hole's a lot bigger, and so you don't have those micro issues with this weather that we have. And so switching to the musket cap was a big one, and I actually switched my my Hawkins over to the musket cap style. And that was just a simple one. But yeah, if you have any.
Yeah, no, that's probably your best. Because it was always, with the small nipples, getting the fire through there.
And then when it's 0 degrees, getting the nipple back
any
off.
kind of moisture. Yeah, and we would play in that time frame of weather, like November in Idaho, where you'd get these extremes, cold nights, and then middle of the day, it might start heating up and warm. And so you get a lot of moisture play. So I mean, one of the simplest, and everybody that's probably shot Hawkins probably knows this or done traditional. They, every morning, because you don't want to fire a gun off at the end of every day, obviously. Every morning, I'm pulling that nipple. I'm re-waxing, putting a little bear grease in there, re-waxing it, and making sure that I dump just a couple grains right there in there underneath the nipple, so it's dry and it goes off. And just that little thing alone, and my confidence level just goes through the roof. Before that, though, before I learned even just that simple little trick, oh man, it is like,
what kind of wax do you put on?
Is it going to be a hang fire, or is it going to be? So I had this bear grease. It was I don't know who made it, but it's been a while, man. These hunts I used to do, this was 20 years ago. This was in my late teens, North Country, when this was pre-wolf. A lot of those hunts that we would chase them around.
That's cool.
We didn't have wolf issues, but I don't know. I'll have to check it out and see what I have in my old.
You just like put it around the nipple?
Possibles bag. No, you just re-grease the threads on the nipple, making sure that during the day when the temps come, get warmer, none of that moisture is able to find its way around those threads to get down into that powder.
Smart.
But that was one of the best. And so every morning or throughout the day, I'd pull the nipple off, kind of make sure everything was dry, drop a couple of dry grains in there. And that alone just kept the hang fires and the frustration and all that from happening.
Yeah, I would literally so I was telling someone this because one of my listeners asked if I had any number 11s, and I was like, I might. But then I looked and I didn't really have any because we would just discard the whole tray every year because I felt like if you held on to those over a year, it was like, nope, just get fresh ones every year. It's worth it. And the same thing, I would take that nipple off and then run like the little, like a paper clip or something in there through it to clear it, and then it would be a brand new nipple the next day or a brand new cap the next day because I didn't trust those with like any kind of moisture whatsoever. And I have not multiple times, I've seen it happen multiple times, but myself have had the you're trying to hold so still when you shoot those things, and you're like click, and you're like no. And he's like silk back behind a tree, hopefully nothing noticed, trying to switch the cap back over. So much
frustration, but so much fun too at the same time.
I was kind of excited about it this year because I was like, to me, it's like I don't have a good reason to go back to doing it, and then I'm like, I kind of miss just tromping around in the woods.
You miss the frustration, don't you?
Yeah. Tromping around the woods. But
one of the things also, like obviously these are just basic concepts everybody probably knows, but we used to run wall tents up there with a stove, and we'd hunt that high country, deep snow. We'd pack in with llamas and do that whole jazz.
Oh, really?
And clearly one of the things you don't do is bring your muzzy inside your wall tent, and you leave it outside, cover it, leave it outside,
right?
But try to keep that whole area just covered as much as you can.
Yeah. And then the same, so we did that sleds hunt. There was times it would be like 12 below, and to the point where just everything's breaking, and we just leave the trucks running. Like you go on a stock and just leave the truck running. Cause like if you shut it off, it might freeze. But the same thing, like don't bring your weapon inside.
Yeah, like absolutely.
Back of the truck in a case. Yeah. Like
those fluctuations of temperatures just ruin your hunt for sure. Just too much moisture, and when you're playing with powder and that old Hawken though, man, what a fun game. I mean, we took some great bulls back in the day on those hunts, and it was a ton of fun. Some great bulls, and but I do remember the frustration. But it got better over time as I talked to more old codgers that filled me in on, this is something you can do. Hey, do this, use this. And so no, man, I'm not doing the heritage season this year, but I kind of hope it keeps going.
Right.
I'd like to try it next year.
Right.
Get back to it.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how many people participate and what happens with it.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Nevada. I want to hear this is why I want to get you in. Hear the Nevada story.
Sure.
A lot of it's all personal because I kind of off podcast want to ask you about that unit, but like just without all that jazz. Drew a Nevada tag.
Yeah.
Congrats. Everything you hope and dream for. You put a lot of time in.
Yeah, put a lot of time. Just because it's a tag I know I'll draw once in my life, and I'll never draw it again. I'm old, so there's what is it? A 6-year wait.
You draw tags, you're gonna draw in like 3 years. Just wait.
Well, Nevada, what is it? 6 years you got to wait. 5-6 years you got to wait between
7. I thought
7 maybe.
I think 7.
Yeah.
Or is it 10? No, it's 10 for elk.
Isn't it 10? I don't know.
God, now you got me.
It's a lot of years.
It's a lot of years.
And then you got to put in
right.
So I drew this tag with 9 points.
Okay. So you're right where I'm at.
Yeah. I mean, I felt super lucky to draw it with 9 points. I just expected that's a long term. Maybe I'll get lucky when I'm 60. I'll get a hunt, a Nevada elk. But I pulled it, and I wanted to carve out the days that it would take. I wanted to put everything I had into that hunt because I knew it was super special. Mm-hmm. Super lucky to be able to go down there and hunt a place that everybody kind of wants to go chase elk in Nevada at some point in their life. So I wasn't going to shirk the work and not do it, not make it work for me. So start to finish, it was a long season. That's a tag that starts up in August. And so I had so much fun on that hunt, Cody. I can't even tell you.
How many days you scouted? Like 10 or a week?
I spent like 3 weeks on that
3
tag.
weeks on the tag?
On the tag. Yeah.
Ooh, I thought you said you could get it done in 10 days.
I know, it should have been 10 days. But no, I spent about 3 weeks just, with a little bit of scouting. I did come out for a little bit. So it wasn't 3 weeks straight combined. But no, I got to see the front end of the hunt when, a lot of the bulls that I was finding. And let's just start with it. Nevada has some of the coolest country ever. It feels like you're in mule deer country. You're in this summer range where you're seeing muleys and you're seeing elk. You got aspens and you got all this kind of really just great country.
And big mountains too.
Big mountains. Yeah, really good mountains. And it's a limited number of folks that are getting to go in there. So, you draw a tag like that, you want to make it right. Right. So I went in there early.
We went in early. When you within the scouting time frame, mm-hmm. Was it what you expected, less than you expected, or better than you expected? Yeah.
So the scouting thing was unique, because with elk, what are you scouting for? Are you scouting for bulls? Are you scouting for cows?
Right.
I kind of figured out real quick where the cows were, and they're definitely way down on the hill, but that's not where I wanted to focus. It's like I wanted to see what the quality was. I wanted to see the numbers of bulls. I just wanted to be up in that high country and just kind of see what was roaming. And I got to see a lot in that time frame because, they're bachelored up, some of them, but some of those older age class, they're just off by themselves and just feeding up in the tops. And man, I got to see a lot of bulls.
Were they exposing themselves? Because the struggle I've heard other people is like, man, you just...
Only in the mornings and like 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening. So the frustration part, it was cool to see the amount of bulls I was seeing in August, the front end of that season, even just before the season. But the frustration was you had a very long day of seeing nothing.
Right.
Because they were not exposing themselves throughout the day.
So what does Ryan Lampers do in the midday when it's like a 30-minute scout, 30-minute just...
I just listen to Cody Rich podcast that I've downloaded. Oh, no.
Because on one hand, you want to be as effective as you can, but you also don't want to be ineffective and that you don't want to like bump things, doing things like that. So it's like, it's easy to be like, I need to do more. But at the same time, you probably shouldn't.
You can't. Yeah, for sure. And that's what a lot of it was. I don't even know how many hours I just sat there twiddling my thumbs, waiting for evening after the morning glance, and you get to see some areas, get to see some bulls. Yeah, that's the problem. You can't just keep bombing around in the country that you hope to hunt come season, because that's always the worry. Just
did you check wallows and water and stuff midday?
I sat back from them and just kind of watched them. I never went and hung cams or anything like that. I didn't really get too deep into the areas where they were hanging around.
Do you feel like
sat back on the tops and glanced from a distance?
Do you feel like that's the more effective way to do it? Because that's interesting. Because I feel like most people draw a good tag, put a camera on every water hole. I want to know what's there, right? But your theory is that stay away from there.
I was. So, for example, like the very first spot I got to. And this was like the very first day I started hiking up, and I was starting to glass and try to scout it out. I hiking up in the dark, get up to this perch, and I still got one more little hike to get to the main perch. And I get on this perch and I look out, and 200 yards from me, there's 3 bulls. And they're good bulls. Like one's a 7-point, and then a couple of 6s. And one of the 6s was really just a studly thing. Well, the wind wasn't great, and they definitely winded me. I wasn't even to where I wanted to really glass from yet, and they winded me, and I never did see those 3 bulls again.
Oh, interesting.
And this is a summer range, but they bailed off the other side. And I never did pick up those bulls again. And I spent a lot of time there. Now, they may have just been around some corner that I wasn't able to see. But I was like, gosh, dang it, I got to be more careful. Like, the point is being up here and seeing them, getting to glass them. And then what I really wanted to do was kind of just follow them as they went into that pre-rut, started staging down the mountain. I knew I was going to be dropping down off the mountain when I was actually wanting to hunt them.
Right.
Now, I had great opportunities when the season started. I think it started on, well, I won't even say the dates. I don't want to give too much up. It definitely started in August. But yeah, my envision was I wanted to see them early season. I wanted to see how they kind of went down the mountain, how, basically the migration they would take from summer range down to the rut area. And I got to see it because I just carved out this time, and there was a day where all of a sudden I'm seeing half the bulls that I was seeing yesterday.
Is that when you noticed? Like, okay,
it's like, okay, they're starting now. And that didn't really happen until September. So, I had heard that these areas, a lot of times those bulls will rut in August. I didn't really witness much rut in August at all. I didn't really see that until end of that first week in September in that area for whatever reason. But it was pretty cool. All of a sudden, I'm standing in an area on this top where I was seeing often 20 bulls a day, various places. And then all of a sudden, I'm seeing 2 or 3 bulls a day.
Oh, really?
It's like, all right, they're transitioning down into their staging area. So, then I had to definitely change. But I had seen so many bulls that I was beyond excited for the opportunities that were going to come once those bulls started screaming and rutting. And I had pretty much committed to not filling a tag until I got to see. Everything. I wanted to see some full rut, Cody. Yeah, I mean that's the fun part about it.
Which is ironic because I would have thought you would have been like, okay, I'm going to find a bull, kill it like a mule deer.
Yeah,
early the season.
I just wanted to. I was almost hesitant to, like pull the trigger on filling a tag until I got to get the full experience of this hunt.
Right.
Because it was one of those that I just wasn't going to be able to maybe see in a lifetime. But so I definitely held back on just putting stocks in on some bulls. I felt like my goal was to see every dang bull in this unit, and I was going to hike as far as it took to do that. Now, obviously, you'll never do that, but I got to see a lot of them. I would say I was probably just in the summer scouting time frame. I was looking at probably 50 different bulls.
What percentage do you think that was? Like throughout the scout and hunt, do you feel like you saw 85%?
Yeah,
I mean, there's always going to be like bulls that show up super late.
Yeah, because I really figured out the perches that saw most of the country, and I could go back and forth, seeing pretty much getting eyes on everything. But then obviously it got real difficult once the transition happened and they started moving down mountain towards cows and heading towards the rut areas, and that's when it got a lot of fun. That's when the challenge came in because I had to learn new country all over again, and. But I knew where the cows were going to be, so I got to follow these bulls down. I never did. I mean, I saw several bulls that I would have loved to take early season, but I knew it was only going to get better with the rut in an area like this where there's just good numbers. And when I think about elk hunting, I think about as much as I like to spot and stalk, I also want to hear bulls screaming, and I just want to see what happens during that rut fest. And so I had some great opportunities at like putting an arrow through, a pretty decent bull. If you want to put numbers to them, like, 320 type class bulls, maybe 330s. But it was one of those, I just didn't want it to end. I didn't really want to fill that tag yet. Right. So I ended up taking that tag down to, there was 2 days left in the season.
Really?
When I finally arrowed a great bull that I picked up. And so I got to witness summer range, transition, pre-rut. I was calling bulls in at a certain point. They were coming in quiet in September. To just before it closed, it was, feels like you heard 1,000 bugles that day.
Oh, really?
They're screaming from every which direction. And, I was able to, they actually moved down out of the more timbered areas and got into the more open stuff. So I was able to glass even better when they moved off and they started, rutting cows.
Being able to watch that whole thing, what did the biggest bulls do? What was their action? Hey guys, quick interruption to tell you about onX's new elite membership partnerships. onX has teamed up with some great brands to really up the value of their elite membership. Before, elite membership got you access to all 50 states, which is awesome. And more of us are hunting more than one state. So to be honest with you, it's totally worth it, because if you really want to hunt every single year, you almost have to start looking out of state, looking for more opportunities. Now, with your onX Elite membership, you not only get the access to those 50 states, but you also get access to Top Rut and to the Hunt and Fool magazine's digital magazine. These tools are invaluable and they're so important. I love these tools, and now you get them all in one membership for the entire year. So upgrade your membership to the Elite membership and get access to all these tools and discounts from other outdoor brands. So this is a heck of a deal. So go upgrade your account to the Elite membership, get all 50 states, and use that TRO code. You'll save another 20% on top of all of that. So huge savings. I think it's a no-brainer to me, man. Upgrade your account to Elite, get it done, and good luck hunting this year, guys.
So
because I think it's easy to like, oh, well, the big bulls do this. And there's a lot of people that'll guess, and I'm probably one of them. You're like, oh yeah, the big bulls don't show up till late. I've had this even within Montana, is just not feeling like I know there's bigger bulls in this area. They just haven't showed up yet. And so I was like, I'm really curious from someone who like watched it start to finish, like what did the biggest bulls do?
So one of the things that I thought was interesting was just being up there in that summer area. The biggest bulls left first.
Interesting.
I got down to the giants that I was looking at disappeared first. And then it was down to more raghorns, satellite type bulls that hung out there on the tops. And so it was at that point that I started moving down. And, when I started doing some calling, not heavy calling, not picking fights, nothing like that, but some light calf calls and stuff like that, I was calling in some of the better bulls that I was watching.
Really?
They're coming in quiet, they're sneaking in, but they
went looking for cows.
They were out there looking for a group. They were the first ones that were really coming into the calls.
And would you say they were the oldest bulls or just the biggest bulls?
I would say the oldest bulls.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely the oldest bulls. I was seeing giants come in quiet. I was seeing some of the better bulls, the oldest bulls in the unit. They definitely hard-horned. They were the darkest. They had been scraping the velvet first. They were darkening up way more than the satellites, more of those younger age class bulls. So kind of made sense. They were definitely rutting ahead of all the other middle age class. So I noticed that it was really easy to call those older age class bulls in.
Really?
The first few days of September.
Yeah.
It was a piece of cake. Like they were just coming in. Now they let you know they were coming, but they weren't fired up. They weren't screaming their heads off yet.
I was very confident.
A little bit of talking, in the middle of the night. And I spent a lot of nights just night hiking and running ridges and kind of listening. And there was a day there where it just kind of turned on and they started going nuts. And I spent so much time like learning the area, finding these areas where the cows were comfortable, where the cows were feeding and kind of relaxed. And those bulls definitely came. And a lot of those meadows, that classic elk meadows that people are looking for, the wallows are and all this, the cows would be out there feeding. And some of those older bulls that first week of September, they were not that far away, but they were a little bit higher in elevation. It was an easy jaunt for them to come down
And
check the cows, kind of run them around a little bit. But then not too long during in the first part of the day, that morning, they'd head back up and they'd bed up and just bed by themselves for the rest of the day. And you couldn't get them to make a noise. You know, they were just very, very quiet. But by the end of that first week of September, everything switched and it just got loud out there. Like they just started talking. And then the whole game turned to, man, I want to find an area where I can put a spot and stock on one of these big older age class bulls with cows. Like that was going to be a heck of a challenge. And I had seen a bull that I really, really wanted to go for. I got video of this bull. He was just an absolute tank of a 6-point, really old. Saw him the first time I saw him. I hiked into this new area a little lower on the hill, and I picked him up just before dark. And there's maybe a dozen cows, and he was not real rutting, like not super hard, but he was there.
Yeah,
and he was just checking them. And I laid eyes on that bull, Cody, and I was like, oh, that's the bull I want to go for.
That's
like
cool.
that is a monster bull, beautiful, long tines, old, huge body on him. And so I spent another, too many days trying to relocate that bull.
Oh, really?
He disappeared. Like he completely disappeared. And I know I was way off. It wasn't like he winded me. I pretty confident I didn't have any reason. It wasn't me that blew him out.
Right. He could have just been cruising.
But probably a week later, I seen that bull, and he was probably 4.5 miles away from where I'd first seen him. And I spent so many hours like watching this drainage and the adjacent drainage, just hoping I could relocate him. And I thought, he's just got to be not moving much. He's not talking. But all he did is travel. But he traveled back up the mountain. So he totally like juked me because I thought if anything, he's going to work down the mountain where there's actually more cows. He went the opposite direction. He went back up the mountain a little bit. And there was this drainage up there where, gosh, there must have been 15 to 20 different bulls, some good ones, some middle-aged class bulls, some satellites, but it was just so loud that they just kept themselves going all day long. Like
There's cows in there?
Oh yeah, tons of cows in there. And there was 3 different bulls in there that I would absolutely have loved to take. One of them was the bull that I ended up taking. Now he, as much as I wanted to go for that big, long timed 6-point that I first saw down low, this bull, when I first saw him, he had about 20 cows with him, and he sounded like a dinosaur. Like he just sounded like he'd lost his vocals, like he'd stretched those things. He had no high pitch left. He was just all moany and just low tones, growly. And so that was when I first laid eyes on him. His body was so much bigger than all the rest.
That's cool.
He dwarfed even that other big 6 as far as body size. So I'd pretty much made my mind that I was going for him. And I'd seen another bull that had a really unique feature to him. His left side, the tines were going backwards.
Oh, cool.
His front 2 were normal, but then everything else went backwards off his left tine. Great bull, probably like a 340 type bull, beautiful bull. But no, once I laid eyes on this old dinosaur, it was like, oh man, he's dark, he's really heavy, he's really old, and it just sounds, Jurassic. So that was the bull I kind of focused on and kind of had to put the blinders on as to all these other bulls that were screaming off in a distance. So, I can make this short, but I ended up finding this bull in an area where the top of the hill had had some sagebrush, like it had a band of sagebrush right on the top ridge on both sides of it. And then there was some thicker stuff covered down below, and it was kind of sparse, scattered aspens here and there. And that bull would come out in the evening like clockwork out of that dark timber. And I was really trying to get a bull without calling. Like I just love that challenge of getting in there and trying to figure a way out to get in tight and arrow a bull. And so, there was multiple times where I'd pick up this bull in the morning and in the evening, just outside of their cover, and I just couldn't find a way to get in on him. And it was definitely frustrating, but because once they dumped into that timber, I'd made up my mind that I'm not going to go in there and try to call that bull.
Do you think you could have?
I probably could have.
Yeah.
Probably could have got in tight just because of the nature of the timber. And, it wasn't like it was this mass amount of timber. I know I could have got to within his bedroom, probably 100 yards, and picked a fight and probably had him come in. But I really wanted to try to get in on him when he had all those cows with him and see if it was possible. And so, one of the evenings I was actually glassing kind of the right side of this drainage, and I heard him, and he's the most obvious bugle because it's so low, so growly. I was like, oh, that's him. I couldn't see him, but
how far away were you?
Oh, he's probably 400, 500 yards out.
Okay.
When I heard him, but I could tell he was getting closer. And sure enough, he was on that upper band. Now I was right on the ridge, and he was on this upper band of sagebrush, right above a bunch of timber. And he was moving my direction. I was like, all right, this is going to happen, So I got kind of set up in this little rock pile, but for him to get to me, he had to cover a lot of ground. I had no opportunity to slip in tighter. He had to come to me. He had to go through this little saddle, and then kind of work his way between me and the lower patch of timber. And so I got set up. It was just one of those fingers crossed. I think maybe I got a 50% chance of him working his way to me. And I won't have to go in any tighter. He'll come to me.
Was he with cows?
20 cows or so. Yeah. And so he kept moving in closer and closer and closer. I got tons of video of this. It was pretty cool to watch him just screaming. He didn't have any satellites in his group. I feel like he probably beat the tar out of anything that got close. And at this point in the game, he had broken off quite a few tines. Like he had 5 or 6 different tines that had been broken off. Wow. Not completely, but I'm not really big on inches or anything like that. He was just so dominant and giant that. And then I could see these other bulls off in the distance that had completely sheared off tines as well. And I'm thinking, it was probably this one that did that. But some big brawls. And so, I kind of hung out in that little rock pile for quite a while. And that whole group, he's kind of at the back end, that big group of cows is working towards this saddle. And they need to keep coming across this upper band to get to me. Well, they get in this saddle, and that dang lead cow goes up, and she's looking down the saddle, down in the ridge, or down in the basin to the right. And I'm thinking, gosh dang it, I know she's going to go down there. She's going to lead that whole group down in that cut. And I'm going to have to race up there and try to come in from the backside of them as they're working down, which that can be pretty tough at times. But she got to that, and something she didn't like down in there. I mean, it was loud down there. There was bulls screaming their heads off down in this drainage. And she got up there, and she's kind of looking down there. And fortunately for me, she decided to lead that group, not down into that drainage, but keep leading that group across this upper band of sagebrush. So they kept feeding their way to me. And it got to a point where I knew, like, they got a little lower on the hill, and they were going to be a little bit tighter to the timber than I thought they were going to be. So I had to slink down. I started slinking away from this rock pile, and there was a other small little rock pile down the mountain, just a little bit. I had to back up and just kind of keep myself as low as I could, snake my way down there, and there was this lone little pine that I could get behind. And it took a while, but I got down to that point. Well, just as I got to that point, it was like the cows were now within like 40 yards of me, feeding right through me. And, it's funny because this was in the evening, and, now I'm worried about my thermals cutting down because it took so long for them to cut across. But the wind, the direction was right in my face, like coming straight at me, north to south. And sure enough, Cody, like it just played out. I mean, talk about luck. Like that cow walked, probably 20 yards from me, right down below me. And she led that whole group right past me. The wind stayed consistent. The wind never got me. Got super lucky. And that bull, I don't know what it is. They always seem to hang out, 20, 30 yards behind the group at times. Mm-hmm. And when he finally decided to come up over that cut, and, you see his rack come over first. And I had just the perfect little spot where I could I was kind of laying down on my butt, and I had to draw the bow super slow.
Yeah.
And then I got to get up and make a shot, and I had a perfect 35-yard shot, just downhill, steep angle, but he didn't go far.
That's awesome.
And he is just a great bull, man. I mean, he's not one of those big scoring bulls, but I couldn't have been happier.
He's heavy, wide.
He's super heavy.
Yeah.
He's really wide.
Yeah, you sent me that video like right after it was like you hiking with him on your back, and I was like, Jesus, that's a wide bull.
Oh, he's just massive. It's funny. He's one of those that like pictures don't really do him justice until you see it in person and realize like there's just a lot of mass here.
Yeah, and those are cool bulls.
Absolutely. I didn't care that he was broken up. That was
but what a cool
point
hunt.
of it.
I mean, what a cool hunt. One of the things I picked up this year, and I'm curious because I think you're really, really good at this, is had this concept, and when you're trying to kill the biggest bull, things change when you're like, I just want to kill a big bull to targeting a specific bull, and you have to get really picky about situations. And I had this concept this year, and I was like, man, it's almost like I got to find the cow. I got to know what the cows are going to do. I almost got to pattern these cows. Mm-hmm. And so when that bull presents, you're like, I have to know option A, B, and C, and then I'll know the play on that option. So it's like almost like you're hunting plans, right? But one of the things you're really good at is like being patient enough to wait for the right situation to present itself. My younger days, I would be so aggressive, and I'd be like, "Oh, there's a break in the opportunity. I'm going to try to force it, right?"
Yeah.
And that just doesn't work when you're hunting one bull, like because it's game over if you screw it up, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's just so much on the line. But you'll also find when you do this long enough is that if you're too patient, like you miss your window, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a really tough balance point that is unknown of like, is this bull going to keep doing what he's doing, or is he just going to turn and leave and I'll never see him again? And it's like really hard to balance like when to force the hand and when to be patient. And somehow you're like, that's, I feel like, what you have mastered.
And it's almost impossible to explain like on a podcast or to somebody or try to educate that. It is like just kind of, I guess, gut or experience or whatever. But yeah, I think back, in my younger years, I think I was, with mule deer, I was impatient. With elk, I was too patient. Like I would just sit and call and hope for them to come into me. And I would freeze up. And I wouldn't move, and I know I would have killed a lot more back in the early days if I would have moved more and positioned myself better and been aggressive. But then you get to a point where you're like too aggressive, and you're blowing animals out. And I've kind of reverted back now to let the situation unfold. Yeah, there's times when you have to be aggressive, and you got to make the right move. Like you got to know what you can get away with. You got to know when, like for in that case, like. I could have banked on them, just fingers crossed, they're going to come up at my level. But I felt like, you know what? There's a good possibility they're going to be a little bit lower on the hill when they come across this. So I'm going to go ahead and take the risk and start moving and snaking my way down. And fortunately I did, because if I wouldn't have made that just one simple move, I would have never got my shot and I would have blown my opportunity. But it's really hard to explain.
But the interesting thing is, like, how many days do you sit and watch these out? I mean, you're 3 weeks into this, and was that your first stock? I always say you kill on your first stock, but I think you wait for your first stock to be perfect.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Most times.
And
I do.
That's fair, because like I'm getting to that point where it's like I will make way less stocks than I used to.
Yeah.
But I'm taking high probability stocks, and that comes with like knowing like I'm waiting for a particular situation, but also a particular animal. Like and I think I used to just go at any herd bull, and if it didn't work out, there's another one right around the corner. Yeah. And whether it's the Nevada, a Nevada tag where you're going to have it once in your life, you kind of have to play out the situation. But you also, I think you're really good at knowing which stock to go on and waiting until you get the right chance, right?
Yeah, and everybody's got their opinions on it, because you listen to guys like Travis Nowotny or Rick Palmer, those guys that are just mule deer crushers, right? Mm-hmm. And they're very aggressive. Like they almost treat it as a numbers game. Like get as many stocks as you can. And I did too, but I've definitely changed. My approach is the opposite. I try to get everything in my favor and try to make sure that I don't blow it out. I know how precious those opportunities are with a mature bull when you find the one that's for you. I think getting yourself in situations where you have a good chance of getting a shot with a bow is important. There's places that I wouldn't focus my time because I know the odds of actually getting a shot are going to be real tough.
100%. And that's a big piece of it too.
Oh yeah.
It's like hunting the right spot, knowing like, even if this drainage has a lot of elk or there's, big good bulls in there, I just know, and I've learned this, that like they're here because the wind sucks here, and I could play this game all day, and it's just not. It's not a good game to play. Yeah. Because like you may see a lot of elk,
and that comes with experience because you've seen it play out over and over.
Right. Yeah, I've seen all the stories.
Yeah. But yeah, it's hard to explain. But overall, I think patience. You go through that progression of, you push the envelope too much in your younger days, but then it always comes back to being more patient in the end. I feel like I'm at that stage where I've just, if it doesn't happen, I'll make it happen another day, maybe tomorrow. But I have very few stocks these days comparable to back in my 20s and 30s, where it was a game of numbers. Like, I just got to do this over and over and over and over, and eventually it's going to pan out.
And for the record, I think to develop a gut intuition, most people should be more aggressive and have more at-bats. Like, you need to, like, you're never really going to hone your gut intuition if you don't screw it up, or you don't just go and do, right?
Well, I think the biggest part of it is explained, like, you just got to figure out with all the stocks that you put in, every stock, you learn a little bit more about what you can get away with. On a mule deer, on an elk, with 20 eyeballs on an antelope, like, you just end up learning what you can get away with. And sometimes you can get away with more than somebody who's just getting out there, just starting out. They freeze up, and maybe that was not the right move. I think people freeze up more often than not, when you could actually have gotten away with a lot more.
Funny story. This year, I put a stock on a really, really great bull. It was a good situation. I got too confident and I took one shortcut, and I never take shortcuts on stocks. Like, I am the guy that's like, take the long way, I said it to myself right before I did it, and I thought I could get away with it because I was behind him, and I'm like, I glassed and glassed and glassed, and I could see into the tree. I could see the tops of his antlers, and I thought, I'm behind him. He was like sound asleep the last time I saw him. And I was like, and it was I say a shortcut, but it was a pretty good sized shortcut, and I was like, I was kind of a little worried about time. I shouldn't have been worried about time, but I took one little shortcut and like just tried to snake down the hill, and I could only see his antlers. I couldn't see his face. And, I get over to the other side, and Craig's giving me the signal that like, he was gone about 45 minutes ago, I was like, Dah. And so like, I really kicked myself on that one because it was like, that was dumb. That was a rook move, just don't take shortcuts. But it goes back to like, what can you get away with and what you're not? Yeah. I guarantee the next time I'm taking the line, probably for eternity, I'll take the
always learning, right?
Right.
For sure. Yeah. Overall, I had a ton of fun on that hunt. And it was one of those hunts where, it's like a lifetime tag, but I was fully willing to not fill that tag if need be. I really wanted to experience the full gamut of, pre-rut, summer range all the way through main rut. And like I said, it was really overall the perfect hunt because I got to see every single aspect of it, and to be able to put a spot and stock on. It wasn't even spot and stock. It was a get in the middle of, get in the right position and have them come to you type situation that ended up working out. But
having been through the gamut of summer range to almost post rut, in your opinion, everyone says like, the best time to kill a giant's pre-rut. What's your opinion on it?
Pre-rut.
Pre-rut cow.
I think so. Except I think where the tables turn is when you're able to spot and stock in the right country. Like that happened on that one. But like I said in the beginning there, I called in a lot of good bulls that first week of September. They're out looking, man. It can be difficult. And I think the strategy there has to be slowing way, way, way down. Because let's face it, those bulls come in quiet a lot. Right. It's quiet in the woods. You're calling, you're listening for sticks to break. And that's where patience comes in a lot as well, because, the mentor that I used to go with, we used to chase him in North Idaho. That first part of the season, we would post up and start these call-in situations where we would sit there for 30 minutes. Yeah. Now that would change as we got more into the rut. Right. But they're so quiet, and you're listening for sticks popping, and those bulls just come in and they're looking for that cow. Like that's when you're actually like cow calf calling and stuff like that. But I had a lot of opportunities on bulls I could have shot pre-rut, some of the better bulls. And then once they get those cows, then
it's tough.
Then you're playing that game. But, you know, if you're in an area where you got a great opportunity to sneak in and still kill that herd bull, then that's where it flips. But calling big mature bulls off of cows is really tough.
Right.
No doubt about it. And yet it doesn't feel as tough before they have those cows. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. If you had to take it again, would you try to kill one early season?
Yeah, maybe since I accomplished the spot and stock thing, I'd go in and call a bull in on this one. But I think if you do that, you lose about a week of hunts time. So
yeah, that's true. I mean, it's pretty cool to be able to be there, see the thing, right? To see like the chaos, you know, in a good area. Yeah. And I always say, like, if you ever get the chance, you want to really get the at bats, go with someone on one of these hunts, because man, the opportunities are crazy amount compared to, like, you know, the way I grew up, it was like, yeah, you might get an opportunity here and there per season, you know, where you're going to learn more in 1 week in Nevada than you are
for sure
a season in Idaho.
I think that's great advice, man. Yeah, going with somebody else who's drawn a great tag, you just soak up so much. And yeah, it's almost like it's your at bats because you're seeing the wins and the fails as well. So no, I think that'd be a great tip for guys just getting into it, and if they want to learn and see what actually happens out there. But yeah, who knows if I was ever to draw that tag again. I think I'll be 70 years old at that point, so I'd probably take what I can get at that point.
Right. So you gonna do some predator hunting this winter or what?
Yeah, that's the plan.
You tried to kill a wolf last year.
Yeah. Took a great wolf last year. This year, gonna do that. You know, as Montana has gotten a little bit more liberal with the season and tags, so I'm gonna definitely take more advantage here in this state. Get over to Idaho and chase them as well. So. Yeah, try to help the elk herds.
Just couldn't get enough hunting in.
No, try to help those elk herds out a little bit. Ton of fun, man. It gets in your blood chasing those. They are tough to hunt, no doubt about it.
Is it? So people have said, like, it's the smartest animal out there. Like,
I believe it.
Really?
There were times, even last year.
I mean, any animal that outsmarts Ryan Lamper's good.
No, there were times I couldn't figure out how I was not seeing these dogs. You know, they're howling in the timber in these little patches right next to me. And I'm like, gosh, dang it, why can I not find them? And they're just bedded up in the timber and then not moving around during the day. And gosh, it was frustrating, but such a challenge. I mean, just a wicked challenge. And I got lucky and I ended up getting a good one. But no, I'm taking that as a stepping stone, and I'm going to go a lot deeper into this predator thing this year.
You're hooked
with
now.
The wolf opportunities.
Yeah. Do you think it's something that, like, there's going to be a lot more people doing it? I feel like not very many people take advantage of it. I think a lot of people go out, struggle, and then quit. So it'd be interesting, like, as people, I don't know, I wouldn't say nail it down, but like find success and whatnot. I saw the stuck in the rut
I don't
guys.
feel like it's getting hard or easier either because they're getting smarter and smarter.
That's true.
Now the states are opening up more. Gosh, I think the seasons are getting easier to get. There's a lot more tags you can get. So I think they're trying to make it easier, but it's going to be hard. It's only going to get harder to fill tags. But then you follow some guys like the stuck in the rut guys. Dude, they crush it. They've got it figured out.
He's got a course out now.
I saw that.
I want to take it. I haven't done it.
Not a bad idea.
Oh yeah. I mean, and he was on. He's on James's podcast, and he was talking about, like, how, you know, when seasons first open up, as in, like, a state opens up, you got a lot of dumb wolves, or, you know, like, in every species you're gonna have, like, smart ones and dumb ones. And he's like, some of these places, like, they've been hunted for a while, and, like, we've weaned off the dumb ones. Yeah. And so it's gonna be a lot harder. It's gonna be tougher. And maybe that's the case, you know, but, like, those guys seem to have it figured out. Yeah. So it is possible.
Well, so I was just building my hunt schedule out for 2022. And I've cut way back on some of the deer and elk stuff.
Really?
So I'm only chasing elk next year in one state, and that's right here in Montana.
So like last 2 years, it's been like 3 states.
too many darn tags. But if you look at my schedule, it's got a lot more cat hunt and wolf hunting. Just kind of want to mix it up. You know, I want to really get after those wolves and the cats as well. We're going to do a hunt here in January, if the weather's right, obviously, but kind of play it with the weather and do a little bit more of that. Some of these.
I want to see Lampers kill a cat, no dogs.
No dogs.
Yeah,
that's the goal. That's the goal. Gosh, I got a buddy in Washington that's kind of his MO on how he does it is, like we were talking before, he cuts a track and he just gets on that track and hikes them down. And
do you think that would be easier in a state like Oregon or Washington where you can't run them with dogs and you have higher populations versus, you know, a state like Montana where it seems like they get hunted?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. You know, they're still doing some calling, hitting those elk winter areas, and there's pretty good numbers of cats, but how cool would it be to walk a cat down on a cold January day with the fresh snow?
Need some Altais and just
go for it.
Yeah, that'd be so
I've got
cool.
the Altai hooks and I'm ready. No, I feel like
that would be cool.
It's gonna definitely put some miles on to try to walk one down, but it wouldn't get any better than that.
Right. So. No. Do you feel like that's like the next challenge, the next adventure
for me? We did so many cool elk hunts this year, deer hunts that I definitely want to do more of the predator stuff. Now, bear is always going to be in your blood. I absolutely love spring bear, but kind of helping these elk numbers out a little bit on the wolves
and the deer numbers.
And with the cats as well. And is there a better meat than mountain lion meat, honestly?
I mean, I've had it. It's good. You put it at the top list? No, I didn't prepare it, so I don't know if that had something to do with it.
Gosh.
Are you that's a big fan for you? You also like porcupine, so I don't know if I can trust you for this.
But as good as porcupine is, mountain lion is better. No, I grabbed a cat in Washington one time. Actually got him on a deer hunt, and man, that was some good eating.
Really?
And I was like, gosh dang, I got to get another cat because the meat was so good.
I've had
light pink, just real mild flavor.
So I've had it twice. I've had pepperoni steaks, which really is tough to say. Like it's a pepperoni steak.
Everything's good in the pepperoni
right.
steak.
And the other way was it was like a pulled pork side. And so I don't know that I would say I have had the taste of the meat because like a pulled pork style, like a barbecue sauce, soaked in barbecue sauce. Again,
you can't really get the full flavor.
Right. So I don't know if I could justify whether I mean, I'm sure it's good.
Yeah. It's absolutely.
So how do you like pork, not pork chop, like a ribeye? Do you just do like a steak? Really?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a real mild meat. And it's surprising because, the first cat I took, I didn't expect it to be good at all. Like, I just expected it's a mountain lion. I mean, it's eating other animals and didn't really expect the flavor that it had, but no, started just working off the backstrap of that thing, eating it like we would a deer, and just thin strips and frying it up and stuff like that. And just that, I mean, everything tastes good like that, but every way I had it was good.
How many pounds do you think you get off a cat?
Not much.
It's a real delicacy.
It is. Yeah, you savor it.
I would think almost like, and not to barbecue sauce, but like doing like a pulled style, whether it was like, slow cooking it and doing like tacos or something like that would be good.
Yeah. I mean, there is such little meat on there. You kind of want to get all the meat off rib cage and everything, I would think. Similar to a porcupine, Cody. You want to grab every scrap of meat off there.
We're going to go porcupine hunting. I want to go. We're going to take
We're going to have to take the kids down because porcupine hunting and taking kids out in the winter. I took Lyle last year. It was Stone Glacier. We went down.
Yeah.
He said when he shot his porcupine, he's like, man, it brings you back to being a kid.
Oh, that's exactly how I see it. It's like, man, that's my childhood in a nutshell. Walking around in the river bottoms, shooting whatever I could.
Yeah. And it's funny because, for folks that haven't hunted porcupines, not many have, I guess, but there are little strategies you come to realize when you're chasing porkies.
What's the strategy here?
So I'll take my girls down when we get these really cold days and yet the sun's up and it's bright, and we're looking for the river bottom areas. If there's Russian olives, they love those. They love chewing on those branches. But what we've noticed is that the porcupine hunt gets really good when you're down like single digits, and then you have middle of the day where the sun comes out. Those porkies love sunning themselves up in those trees. And so you're actually glassing for porkies, and the kids can pick them up in the trees. And, it's either going to be a big nest of some sort or a porcupine when you're looking at those river bottoms, because all the leaves are gone. So the kids get into it, and they can pick them up with the glass, and then you get to go and, you shoot them out of the trees. Now, you got to be careful with porcupines. You want to put a really good shot on them, because they will grab on to that tree.
Really?
And they'll latch on.
So we going for headshots or spine shots?
You want to take them down with one shot. Yeah.
So I've heard, I grew up with this. I don't know if it's a truth or not, but I've heard that porcupines have really soft skulls, and you can just tap them with a stick on the nose and it'll kill them. Really? Yeah. You got to test this theory without getting bit or without getting slapped.
Interesting.
Yeah. I almost stepped on one during deer season. I had headlight off, and I was walking.
That's when it happens at night.
Oh God. It was so close to. And as I'm looking down, I was thinking stump, and because it was like the motion, as you're walking, but I was like, that stump's moving in the corner of my, right as I said it, and oh God, literally inches from kicking that thing. And I was like, dang it, sucker. Yeah. I have a couple times this year. I do feel like there's more porcupines, and I don't know if it's just like a Eastern Montana thing. But God, they're everywhere.
There's a lot of them. Yeah, we ran into a couple of them. Problem is, we ran into them. We were stalking deer at the time, or we would have definitely had them for dinner. But
I didn't think of it. What, is there a season? Can we kill these anywhere?
What's that?
Can we kill them anytime? Is there a season for them?
No season on porkies.
No
season on porkies. I don't even think in Montana you need a hunting license to shoot porkies. It's a non-game species, but I think it's the same with coyotes here in this state, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So, one of the unique things about porkies is, if you look back at the old stores, like the mountain men of the old days, porcupines was it. They're super fatty, so they're high calories. High fat, and so when you end up tossing, you split a porcupine in half and you toss it in pieces into your crock pot or whatever. Man, I feel like I could render some of that fat off.
I was gonna say, are they super fatty with
very fatty? Yeah, very fatty on the meat. And so it's similar to bear. It feels like you can't overcook the darn things. So we've Andy with the flip flop, how he does the whitetail quarters on the birch barrel. So we did that with some porcupine legs, and it's good, man.
Really?
Yeah. Just get a little singed.
There's a book that you need to read, because you were talking about the old timers, and it just came out. Actually, Dione sent it to me, and it's called Journal of a Trapper, and it's by Osborne Russell. And I think in that book, he had mentioned something about eating a porcupine. And it's kind of just, it's a journal of his travels, and through this country. They were down in Fort Hall, and they trapped beaver all over this country, up through, there's crazy amount of ground they cover, right? And they'll make notes of what they ate that night and what things like that. But you'd love that book. I got it on Audible.
Yeah,
it's so good. Dione sent it to me.
Well, the thing about it, for the old mountain man, you wouldn't have to waste a bullet. Number one,
right?
Because they are pretty simple,
right?
But the high fat content, easy to cook, and you could eat them raw. It's one of those animals that, all they eat is sticks or wood, bark. And so, you can literally eat that meat raw without concern.
Where did you find this information?
I don't know. It's the Google. You might want to double check that.
But before you go eating raw porcupine, because Ryan said you could.
It's one of the few animals that you're actually safe to eat raw.
Have you tried it?
Yeah.
Raw.
And I'm still here.
We have porcupine sushi.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we did. And it's funny because we used to do it in Washington a lot. There was areas on the east side of the mountains that held a lot of Russian olives. And so we could go in there. And I say this is a great kids hunt, but it was funny because it was like me and Joe, my cousin Joey. We'd go out there ourselves and just make a day of going chasing porcupines. But it was also an area that we liked to bird hunt. And we were tired of getting our dogs quilled out there. Let's just thin them out a little bit. But we started eating them, and that's where we started really researching, a little bit more. And that's kind of where we learned about that's one of the facts that you can eat those darn things raw. So yeah.
So like, how many are you seeing? Like, you cover, I don't know, half mile of river bottom. Like, is there like pretty solid? There's one there. There 10 there. Like,
surprising. There can be multiples in one tree, and it's pretty rare that we're not successful on a porcupine hunt.
Right.
Every Christmas Eve, me and Paley, last year the whole family went. As Tana's getting older, we go down there and I think we grabbed 2 on that trip. It's fun, man. It's just a good time for the kids. Like I said, they can see them up in the trees. You get to walk flat river bottoms, and so it's not difficult. Now, it can be cold. Back and they can fiddle fart around with the quills and make stuff with that. And they get the challenge of dragging those things back to the rig, which is always kind of cool to see the kids participate.
No, that's a great little kids hunt, man.
Yeah,
that's cool.
But you got to get yourself a porcupine. You got to get it in the crock pot, build a stew around it, and man, it's a good meal. And that's our Christmas Eve meal every year.
Really?
It's pretty good.
That's awesome, man. So let's talk about Summit. You got that coming up?
Yeah.
Is it all ready to go?
Yeah, Western Hunting Summit again. Booking that right now. New ranch this year, new place. So this year we got the old Turner Ranch, Turner Ranch.
You getting fancy with this thing?
Oh man, well, so one of the things. Now last year we had a great spot up there in the Crazy Mountains, great ranch, but the area I wanted to hike the guys, it still required going onto the Forest Service. Right. So still grabbing those permits, and it was really restrictive with how we wanted to make this thing go. So we had to take small groups up on the mountain. And last year, for whatever reason, there was no opportunity to overnight camp or anything like that. So, we found a ranch this year. It's like 27,000 acres, the old Turner Ranch there. And great country. It's definitely way different than what we've done in the past. It's got a lot of big elk on it.
I was going to say, you can see some bulls.
It's got mule deer on it, and it's got a lot of bears on it. So we're going to be glassing up some stuff. We've got now opportunity to not have to be so restricted with what we can do, what we want to do with the hiking, night hikes, overnighters, stuff like that. So we went back to animal specific this year. So this year's event dates are June 9th through the 12th. We're doing an elk summit. That's your specialty.
Yeah.
And then doing a mule deer summit after that. That would be June 16th through the 19th. And then this year we're trying something a little bit new. Every year we try to tweak it a little bit. We're doing a family camp, focus more on archery. So folks have the opportunity to bring the kids, and we've got instructors there that are going to basically be in charge of entertaining these guys, the kids, with shooting, with some just fun activities, man. They're going to be doing some hiking, little mock antler hunts, stuff like that we can just get them into it. Last year we noticed, man, like my kids and like Robert Hanneman's kids and, some of the other presenters' kids, they were there and they were just fishing and catching frogs and snakes and all the fun stuff. So we wanted to have one where folks had the opportunity to bring the kiddos. Yeah. And then, we've got some local instructors that are going to be there teaching them a lot while we're off doing our own thing and doing our own challenges. That's kind of...
It's kind of become a thing.
Yeah. We like that. Like the 3D course. Last year we ran a 5-mile 3D course, and I made everybody carry weight on it and never take the pack off. And we had a target where I sunk that target. I think it was a javelina or something, like right in the creek, right in the creek. So had to take the boots off and go grab arrows and just try to make it a kind of unique and exciting and challenging. And we're going to do a lot more of that. So tweaking it every year, trying to make it better every year. We've got some great presenters, some new blood coming in this year. I've talked, guy, Sam Davis. Mm-hmm. Sam's coming up. He's going to do some stuff with us, I think at the elk event. But yeah, it's going to be fun. We're looking forward to it. We're gonna have a lot of days out there at the ranch, and like I said, it's just a big playground. Like we got so much space to play, and we'll be able to glass up a lot of animals. Everybody camps on site. We feed everybody the entire time from when they get there to when they leave. 4 days of fun. So it's kind of like an education, entertainment, challenges, all
which
the
I don't
things.
think you saw in the beginning, but it's really become something, I think, which was interesting. And we never, when you and I were talking this in the beginning, we never thought that it would be something that people were like, come back every year.
I know.
And it's like, people are like, oh yeah, I'm doing that trip again.
Yeah, absolutely. I never expected that we'd get guys that are now on their 4th summit, a lot of 3-peats and a lot of doubles.
Yeah.
Never saw that coming. What that forces us to do, Cody, is make it different. Right? Like we can't do the same program.
Yeah.
New challenges, new speakers, new ranch.
Yeah.
So
that's cool though.
Yeah. It's been
really
fun.
Cool.
It's been really cool. We've got a great community going there. It's always interesting to see the photos coming in from guys that have been to the summit in the past. So they're texting me success pics, whether it was a goal of theirs to take a bull with their bow, or maybe it was their first deer, first bear, first elk. Seeing a lot of those. Like we're getting a lot of those from guys that have attended a summit. So it's pretty neat, and we're able to communicate back and forth, and a lot of the attendees that have come in the past have become pretty good friends.
That's awesome.
Love it.
No, it's such a cool event. It's up right now.
It's live right now.
It's live right now.
Yeah.
So if people want to go sign up for that, I would recommend jumping on that because it sells out.
It sells out every year. Yeah. It's just westernhuntingsummit.com, and right now we got the pre-sale going through December 24th. There's a little bit of time left, and we're doing daily giveaways right now for anybody who's on there. If you get in on the pre-sale, you save some dollars, but you also get a pretty cool gear package, some stuff from Peaks and Stone Glacier and us. And
nice.
So, there's some benefits to signing up early, and you actually get a spot.
Yeah, you make sure you get a spot. Well, cool. Well, everybody go check it out. If you're interested, it's super fun time. And I think this year's going to be really cool.
It is. Absolutely. So. I absolutely can't wait to spend those days out at that ranch. Just that time of year, I'm envisioning the bears that we're going to be looking at, and some of those bulls, the growth that they already have in June.
Dude, it's going to be cool to see the bears. I think there's going to be some giants.
Well, know this. It butts up to probably the most famous ranch in Montana as far as elk hunting goes.
Yeah. I mean, there's some giants in that area.
It'll be fun.
Yeah. So, it's a cool opportunity.
Who knows? Maybe we'll even wrangle Cody Rich to come back to an event this year. It'd be great to get the family out for that.
Well, the one I was going to go to last year, Gabriel had his wedding.
Yeah.
Which, why doesn't everyone in the industry just coordinate these things?
I gave him so much grief for that.
Yeah. No, I think I should be good for first weekend of June. Yeah. I do have a wedding 21st of May or something like that.
Yeah. We'll get you out there for one of them for sure. Maybe the family camp.
Yeah. I'm just going to throw this out there. We need like a family porcupine, or like a kids youth summit for porcupines.
Oh, that'd be a blast.
Yeah.
My daughters would want to participate in teaching that one. I feel like they're getting pretty experienced with the porcupine.
Yeah, ones. I think she could easily teach that one. She knows more than I do, that's for sure.
Oh, and she'll tell you she knows as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right, buddy. Well, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Cody.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the podcast. Today's episode is made possible by the awesome folks over at Maven Optics, an amazing Wyoming-based optics company that I absolutely love. Whether you're in the market for a rifle scope or binoculars, Maven is the company I would recommend hands down. I've been running the B series binoculars for a number of years now. And in my opinion, these are hands down the best bang for your buck and are just an awesome piece of gear. This year, I got myself a new pair of B5s in the 15x56s. And let me just say, I absolutely love these binoculars. And I plan on using the B5s a lot this year. I've seen a lot of open country hunters who run only 15s, and so I thought, what the heck, I'm going to give it a try, see if I can run only 15s. I also picked up a new RS3 rifle scope that I'm putting on top of my 300 HCA for pretty much all of my rifle hunts. So pretty stoked about some new optics this year. Maven makes really high quality stuff, and for the price point, you just absolutely can't touch it. The one thing you'll hear great hunters talk about throughout this podcast is invest in good glass. If you want to upgrade your hunting skills, head over to mavenbuilt.com and upgrade your glass. Use that TRO code for a special gift when you purchase. Today's podcast brought to you by the good folks over at onX Maps. onX has some really big updates and some cool new features this year. One of the big features is the new 3D mapping on desktop. As I spend a lot more time e-scouting than actually scouting these days, thanks to that dad life, the new 3D mapping has been awesome. I find myself using Google Earth less and less, and it's just easy to e-scout all within onX. Another tip for this time of year as season's approaching is to make sure you're up to date with all your map downloads. So this time of year, I'll go through and re-download all my maps just to make sure that when I get out in the field, I have all the maps I need and I'm not trying to find service to download new ones. So it's just one less thing that I have to worry about during season. So little pro tip, go download all your maps, make sure you're ready to do all your offline mapping. Use the code TRO for 20% off your onX membership at onxmaps.com. Just smoked him at 55 yards.